All right, welcome to your 200-hour teacher training. And my name is Donna Martens, and we'll be covering yin yoga for this session. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We'll get started. My name is Donna Martens, and I'm so excited to see you all. Wow, an enthusiastic group of new, fresh yoga teachers. You guys are going to do amazing out there. I'll have you here for the whole day, and we're going to start off with yin yoga, and then we're going to move into some of the other topics. We will have a break at some point in time during the class, so don't worry about that. You know, probably after we do our yin yoga segment, we'll have a little break. A little bit about me. Quite a long time ago, I was just like you, sitting in this very, well, not this studio, but through Intervision, I received my 200-hour teacher training and then my 500-hour teacher training. And then we've moved on to my specialty now is yoga therapy. So I teach all of my classes from a yoga therapy perspective, and my personal teaching has sort of steered into more non-traditional yoga. But today I'm here I still know the traditional yoga. Here I'm more in a traditional yoga sense, and we're going to go over one of the most traditional practices in yoga called the yin yoga. And just a show of hands, who all has gone to a yin yoga class at the studio yet? Oh, all right, almost everyone, or just a yin yoga class period. Okay. And then what I'd like to do is check in with you guys and find out what are some of the things that you've noticed about yin yoga or that you think about yin yoga. And I'm going to build on what you already know and expand. So how is yin yoga different than some of your other classes that you might take? Yeah. It's a lot slower. It's a lot slower. Yeah, for sure. What else? You hold the poses a lot longer. You do. You hold the poses a lot longer. And usually the traditional hold is between 3 and 5 minutes. And you wouldn't want to be, for example, in chair pose and the teacher goes, okay, let's go 3 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Like for your standing classes. So there's another component to the yin yoga practice that you might have noticed. Yeah. Yeah, it's on the ground. Yeah, for the most part, all of the poses are done on the ground instead of standing up. There are a couple standing, maybe one standing pose that people can do in the yin practice, but for the most part, it's all done on the ground. What else have you noticed about your yin yoga? It brings up an internal settling. Yeah. Yeah, a lot can happen in those 3 minutes, right? And in doing the stretches, depending on the way we breathe while we're doing the stretches, we can be impacting our nervous system to create a calm state of mind. For some people, it could be very, very agitating. Anyone ever been agitated in a pose? Yeah, because it was funny today. I just taught a yin class right before you guys all came in. And I said, one of the things I said to them is, if it's uncomfortable, you're doing it right. And they were all like, oh, we're definitely doing it right. And so that is a sign of the yin pose. The reason it's uncomfortable, if we're doing it in alignment, is we're literally pulling our tissues apart. And we're pulling our tissues apart so that they can re-knit together in a more functional way, if you will. A lot of times we have tension patterns that kind of made our body, let's say my body kind of hunches like this, right? Well, all of my tissues have grown now to support this posture. So this is quite easy. If this were my shape, this is quite easy for me to, I could hold this all day long, right? But as if you look at me, you might say, well, one day I might complain, oh, my neck hurts, oh, my shoulders hurt. Though I could hold this all day long, I'm feeling effects of that. And so one of the truest benefits of the yin yoga class is to literally reshape the body. And that's why we hold for 3 minutes, 5 minutes. There's quite a lot of science out there when you talk about fascia, is that if you pull on the fascia for a long period of time, the fascia will loosen up a little bit. And you might have thought of, I'm making my muscles longer, right? You think I'm going to do a stretch and that's going to make my muscles longer. Well, that's kind of the old way of thinking. What they've kind of discovered since then is that our muscles have a sheath on top of them, and they call that the fascia. And the sheath is meant to slide and glide, and our muscles are meant to slide and glide. And so what you're calling your increased flexibility isn't that you grew your muscles longer, it's you grew your ability of your muscles to slide away from each other. Though they're the same length, they're sliding away from each other and they're sliding and gliding. And the fascia has really cool properties in that over a period of time, it's like, have you ever had an old caramel? Right? And it's like a brick, right? And when you first got the caramel, you could mush it and squish it a little bit, right? And if you left the caramel out in the sun, it would be more like a pancake, right? Well, your fascia is kind of like that. And our tissues are kind of a little bit like that. If we neglect our tissues, to be simplistic, they will become like that brick of a caramel. If we use our tissues just right, they will become like, ooh, the gummy caramel that gives you cavities, gooks into your teeth and all that. It'll be really squishy and pliable. But if you use your tissues and you stretch your tissues too much, guess what? They get overly long. And overly long tissues, just like that caramel, if you needed to have a square shape to function and it turned into the flat pancake can't do what the square shape can do. You understand that? And so one of the sort of therapeutic principles is we just want to be careful. We want to stretch to a point where we grow our flexibility and we return that caramel to its nice squishy gushy, but we don't want to stretch to a point at infinitum. And, and I'll have to say, back in the day when I was going through the training like you guys, my sole goal was to get my forehead to my knee in Janu Sirsasana, and then I thought something good is going to happen as a result of that. And it was all about, for me, finding the fullest expression of the pose and being able to do all the poses, right? Because I'm a go-getter. And that really doesn't, that doesn't leave you in a very good place in terms of functionality. So if you can flop over and, and touch the ground and lay your entire belly on your thighs, and you can kiss your shins with your face, that means that this back side of your body that allows you to go down like that has gotten really, really long. And just like that caramel, a really long caramel is not a very strong caramel. It's, you can easily pull it and it will break. And as a matter of fact, you got, anyone here been injured from yoga? Raise a hand. Yeah. What was your injury?
I aggravated an injury that I already had in CrossFit, which took me out of CrossFit.
Yeah.
So, and I still work with it now. So I got a pinched nerve, and it's associated with my trapezius. So what I had to do is stop, and I still mindfully do this. So I stop and full jog on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just accommodate for it, and
Yeah, so you had a pre-existing injury and then you came to do yoga and you started doing chaturangas and it hurt more. And then you stopped doing chaturangas and it hurt less. And you said, I'm on to something.
Yeah. I just, for now, I consciously go to my knees when I get out of
Yeah.
bed, and my ego is what got me from the first place.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to express to you guys, my ego was all in my practice early on, and now it's really come around on that. Anyone else? You guys, how long? Yeah, what's,
Yeah, I have a pre-existing condition in my neck too, and like a disc that's kind of protruding. And so
Yeah.
I would do headstands or shoulder stands and go way back.
Yeah.
I'm very limber.
yeah,
And then I just know now not to do things that hurt me.
that's
because
right.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So I do the things I can, and the other things I just don't do. And it's
Yeah.
okay.
And, you know, and I'm going to have a whole nother segment on yoga injuries and all of that. So I want to address all of those in that session as well. But, you know, probably taking your neck and bending it 90 degrees so that your feet go straight up in shoulder stand. You know, the traditional version of shoulder stand, your neck is like this and your body is like that. And as you felt personally, you know, did you say you had a pre-existing condition or you feel like
I had an issue with my neck already.
before yoga and then you start doing that? And
Aggravated.
okay, and excuse me when I say like, oh, I love that. I don't love it that you're, but I love it that you could feel that putting your body in that position could cause and exacerbate injury. So it could actually cause the injury that you're talking about, or if you are injured, it could further the injury. And so we just want to be super duper mindful, because you guys are going to be doing yoga 24 hours, you know, every day, all the time, yoga, 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 yoga. So it's not so much about pushing to the end and getting to the end and finding this big final destination. It's about that Goldilocks approach of what is the best flexibility and the best flexibility for me and my body. And I don't want to get you wrong. We do need to grow to what we might call functional mobility. Okay, so there are a lot, you guys probably aren't that crowd, but there are a lot of folks who will be coming to your class. As you guys were coming in, you saw my guys coming out, right? And those are your clients, and they're not going up and let's touch the ground and kiss my knees. They're going, oh, God. You know, and so that's who we're serving, and we're especially serving them in a yin class. They really, really need to stretch and release, as well as other things, and get strong. And for fully accomplished yogis who've been doing yoga for a long time, they might not need to sit out and stretch as much as the other folks to get to functionality. So we're looking for that balancing act. So any other comments about what you think yin yoga is about, or your experiences in yin yoga? Oh, could you guys all put out your name tags? Make them, oh good, I like it. They're big so I can see them. Yeah. Okay, so then you just get a piece of paper, like, and you just fold, like these guys are folding it in half. Yeah, fold it lengthwise so it stands like a tent. Can you guys show her yours so she knows what? Yeah. And then if you, yeah, then I'll be able to see them. Good. And then, so the other thing I'd like to tell you about, a lot of my yin classes, people say to me, oh, you made me cry. Has anyone ever cried in yoga? Come on, little hands up. Oh, yay. Come on, more. Up, 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 up. Okay, crying is an awesome thing. Okay, so we might call crying in yoga an energetic release. Does that sort of ring true for you guys who raised your hand? You had this overwhelming acknowledgement of something, and maybe you can't even put words on it, but your whole body like knows it. You couldn't like describe it to someone. If I said, tell me all about it, it's like, it's very, very personal, and it's some kind of illumination that happens. And during yin classes, probably more so than all the other classes I've ever taught, lead to that opportunity for that awakening and that dawning of awareness and opening and insight. Some of the other classes, if the music's playing and I got to balance this and I got to do that and I got to do this and I got to do that, those are all awesome. I'm not putting those down or knocking them, but they don't lead for time for you to go to like put it all together, the sort of that emotional component. So the yin class will provide that for you as well. All right, well then, I want to do is what I might call meta yin. And traditional yin, in a regular yin class, if you weren't doing teacher training, you would just have a beautiful experience and then go, right? But I want to teach you how to do what we're doing. So it'll be, even though you're experiencing it, you won't probably get into that multidimensional part because your brain's going to be on, you're going to be thinking about all the different postures and the way, and how to build the postures, how to recreate what we're doing. So what I'd like to do though is to put you in an opening posture, because I'd like us for all to kind of calm down a little bit and to feel, like I said to my class today, the way you'll know that you're in a yin pose is it's uncomfortable, but it's not creating a sharp pain or numbness or tingling, okay? It's uncomfortable because we're pulling the tissues apart. So one of my favorite ways to make you all uncomfortable is through the use of props. And you might be confused because you might think props, oh, that's deluxe, right? That's restorative. That I'm going to just melt away and let all my cares and worries float away. Well, you can use the props for restorative purposes for sure, and they are excellent at it. But you can also use the props in the yin practice to further expand your targeted tissue areas that you want to stretch. So for this first one, we are going to use all of our props. It's important when you are offering a yin pose, you know what am I trying to do? A pose just isn't a pose. The pose is has a therapeutic benefit in a target area. So the first pose we're going to do is, it's called a reclined butterfly posture, but I want to explain a little bit about how that impacts your body. So if you could all start off by just making your feet in the butterfly pose. And just so you get a feel for that, as you sit up nice and tall and you open your knees out to the side, what do you think is part of our targeted stretch? Like, where would you be feeling stretch in this pose? Yeah, well, the hips are here, 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 here. So where in your hips in particular? Yeah, okay. So I guess that's the next thing. We always talk about the hips as like they're one thing, and they kind of are, but there are a lot of pieces. So if you look at your hips, you've got the muscles that attach in on the inside here. And what might we call these muscles? Adductors with a D, adductors, okay? And every muscle group has an opposite muscle group that also functions. Otherwise, you'd be completely lopsided. So on this side, we call these the abductors with a B, abductors, okay? If you target your yin class and you only do your adductors, well, you get lopsided, right? So part of your sequencing and part of your delivering of your classes is thinking, if I hit one target area, I want to also try to hit the other target area as well. Okay, so we kind of want to just keep that in the back of our mind, because at the end, you're going to construct a class where you select different poses. And there are a lot of poses to choose from. And I know it's this is advanced training, you know, to really think this way, but just sort of have it in the back of your mind. And then as you get really savvy on anatomy, and as you begin to think more and more about what am I really doing here, you can think, well, what is the, you know, what's the other area that goes with it? And then the other part of our hips we've got is this front part here. What would we call these? What's that? Quadriceps, yeah. And the quadriceps function is to bring your knee up. So it's a hip flexor. You don't really have to know that, you know, adductor, abductor, hip flexor, but you don't. So the important part is it's here, right? And so what do you think its opposite muscle group would be? Yeah, hamstrings, okay? So if you stretch your quads, you want to stretch your hamstrings. Okay, do you guys want to hear about my biggest pet peeve? Well, you got to say yes, right? Because, yeah, sure. Well, y'all listen to you complain to me. Okay, if you think back to your last yoga class that you took, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to invite you guys the next time you take a yoga class and you're not journaling it, you're just taking it, count how many times you stretch your hamstrings. Count them. Up, down, that's one. You know, let's see, I'm going to lean towards my leg. That's two. Count how many times you're bending forward and you're leaning towards your legs. And then count how many times you're extending back. And you're probably going to find that the ratio is not very balanced at all. I would guess 4 to 1. 4 to 1, you're flexing as opposed to extending. And if we are already really good at this, right, we kind of need to get better at this, right? And so keep that in mind also when you're teaching your classes. How many times am I folding over, and could I extend back in equal proportion? And I know it's just enough to get the poses out. I get it, right? To describe the poses. But I want you guys to think down the road, just like put that in the back. You'll like, I'll be like this little angel in the back of your head. Once you kind of got all that down, you'll be like, now I want to try to balance the body while I'm orchestrating all of this. Okay, so we were opening our legs out to the side in butterfly pose, and you were already feeling your stretch here for a little while, which is really good. What our target was this inner groin, but what also do you think is stretching? What does the inner groin attach into? Very key muscle group called the pelvic floor, okay? Right in between and under your legs. And that is a huge area that can get really tight and congested. I know it's such a small muscle group, but it can get really tight and congested. So it connects in, you know, it's not just there. And then when we go backwards and we lay on our bolster, then what also are we getting for our targeted area? Raise the hand so I can hear something. I heard a lot of things, but I didn't hear any one thing. What go ahead. Who said something? Yeah.
Your lower abdomen.
Yeah. So your lower abdomen is stretching. When we say that, we might, what are some muscles that you guys know about that are here? Huh? Oblique, someone said. Sure.
Transverse.
They're transverse abdominis. Yep. Down here. Any other muscles that you might know about? Your six-pack abs, rectus abdominis. And then deep underneath the rectus abdominis is called your psoas. And we'll be actually talking a lot more about that today in the second portion of our class. So we've got a lot, and we've got a lot of deep core muscles that if you look, if you think of this belly area, it's got a front side surface muscles like that rectus abdominis. Then you've got all your guts, I'll call it. And then on the back side of your guts are a bunch of muscles as well. And that's like the psoas. It makes a hammock. It's on the front of your spine. So you've got muscles on the back of your spine, but underneath your guts, I'll call it, you've got muscles on the front part of your spine. And as we go like that, all of that stretches. All right, so let's make our first shape. So we'll make our feet into the butterfly pose like you've got them. But first I'd like to wiggle a little bit because you've been sitting here for a little while. So take an inhale and pull yourself into an arched position where you feel your back muscles engaging. And when you exhale, make your knees move up and squeeze your arms. So you can kind of keep your hands there and just sort of squeeze. And inhale, open. Yep, so you'll keep your hands right on the inside of your, I'll kind of pretend I'm sitting down like you, okay? So we inhale and we open into our butterfly, and exhale, we'll squeeze and we'll push our arm. Yeah, there we go. Inhale, open into your butterfly and broaden your chest and feel that part of your body expanding. Exhale, feel that part of your body contracting. Okay, go for a few more times. So we're creating a little bit of activation and circulation in our target area. You're activating your inner groin when you squeeze your legs together. Also, when you squeeze your legs together, you can pull up those pelvic floor muscles. And then notice your spinal mobility and your core starting to surge and circulate. And go for one last time. Okay, so the principles in yin pose is you want to make the shape and then you want to fill the space, okay? So the first part of our shape is the butterfly. So what I'd like you to do is fill underneath the knees. So a lot of times, well, I need the blankets though. So I'm gonna go grab some more blankets for you guys. Some of you guys, your knees are so flat, like you just need a little blanket. You don't need a whole block. Let me grab another stack here and we'll. Okay, come on over here if you guys, if your knees are really flat to the ground and a block's too high, grab some blankets. There, and we'll need the two because we're going to use the two because we're going to go backwards. Okay, so you filled the space either with blocks or additional blankets. So then you'd have 4 blankets instead of 2. And then we're going to prepare the bolster. This bolster is lovely. It's great for leaning back and opening up. But what I like to do is to create enhancements on the bolster that further create an expansion in the body. So what we're going to do to help the bolster be a little, to beef up our bolster, if you will, we're going to take one blanket and make it into a jelly roll like this. And then you want your bolster, it's going to catch your back. So you want it lengthwise with your mat. And you're going to put the bolster T-shaped across. But I'd like it on the lower 1/3 of your bolster. And let me hold mine up so you can see what I mean when I say that. See how it's on the lower part? So my seat is over here. Look, it's like a hand width. And then I've got this bolster. I've got this roll. Okay, our second blanket, we're going to make more like a pillow. So that one is less precise. So you're going to bunch it up, make it kind of like just like a little square so that when you lay back, it'll catch your head. Okay, now we hold the poses for a long time, right? And one of the things I want you to be aware of is when people go back, right? And if they haven't got their props in the right place and they hold their head like this for 5 minutes, what do you think about that? What do you think about that, Charlotte? Yeah, it's a killer, right? It's a killer, right? And so if it's a killer for someone who's hurt, know that you are probably hurting yourself. You just haven't felt it yet today. You know what I mean? It's accumulating. So your job as a yin yoga teacher is, once you call the props and tell them what to do, is go around and just see, did anyone do that? Even against all the things you said chin down, forehead up, head, sometimes it just doesn't convey. And so you've got to walk around and check for that. So then the way we'll get into this very first pose, which I know is taking a long time, but I'm teaching you while you do it. We're going to reach back with our hands and hold on to the jelly roll. Once you've got the jelly roll, start to roll back. And you want your jelly roll, if you can see me, to land right at your thoracic junction. So for you ladies, right about where your bra strap is. And then bunch the pillow up so it's underneath your head. And then once you've got it there, we'll open the arms out like a T or off to the side, okay? So as we get into this pose now, are you feeling a different target area, an additional target area? We talked about the core and the guts and the inside. Are you feeling anything? Yeah, So Charlotte's telling me she's feeling right across the front of her chest. Any of you guys feeling that too? Yeah, that is an additional target area. But what I'd like to do is to make sure that we keep hitting that target area. So the way we position our body helps us to hit it even more. So if you take your right hand and touch your left shoulder, and then you're going to lift up your elbow and your arm, like you've got, put your bicep near your ear and your forearm on your forehead, like you're wiping sweat off, and do a backstroke. And as you do a backstroke, we want to allow the right scapula to tuck in and down, the back of the right hand to touch the ground, and the elbow to touch the ground. Can you snug the shoulder to hug around the bolster? Okay, feel the difference between right and left. We've just done a simple thing, but is the feeling in your body so simple? It's more intense, right? Let's do the same with the other one. We're going to touch opposite hand to shoulder, lift the elbow up, do a backstroke, tuck your scapula in and down and underneath you, and then let the back of the hand rest. So you want your elbow touching the ground and the back of your hand touching the ground. So you got to bend your elbow to get there until it arrives. Good, and then you're hugging your shoulders around. And then see if you feel like just simply closing your eyes. It's slightly uncomfortable, isn't it? It's pulling you, but that's what the yin pose is supposed to do. It's supposed to pull on those tissues. And if your shoulders are round and down and forward a lot, which most of us have, we need to also target a way to kind of pull that all open and apart. The way we breathe matters. The way we breathe impacts our nervous system and our ability to let go and soften. So let's check in with our nostril breathing. We're going to breathe in deep through the nose and breathe out deep through the nose. And I'm pretty sure I'll have a segment where I'll talk to you more about pranayama, but just know that pranayama impacts our nervous system. And I'm going to be talking to you more specifically about the nervous system in a little while. But we have an on mechanism of our nervous system and we have an off, or we have an excited state of our nervous system and a relaxing state of our nervous system. The exciting state gets us ready for action, and we definitely need it to do all kinds of things. But it does break up, creates inflammation. It's very active and it's very draining. The relaxing part of our nervous system regenerates us. And so this kind of class, we're trying to create a regenerative effect. So then we add on the icing on the cake is how we breathe while we hold the postures. And so you're counting maybe the duration of your inhale, see how long it goes in. And counting the duration of your exhale, see how long it goes out. And we meditate here by counting our breath as we breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Good. And simply notice and sense and feel this is a heart opening posture. So as we take our awareness into the middle of our chest and our heart, we start to open to feelings of love or joy or gratitude. Or we simply offer a willingness to open our heart. I'm willing to open. I'm willing to feel. I'm willing to be myself. And we might call that the energy in the pose, right? There's energy there, and we're connecting with that. All right, now we're in a pretty big pose. So I'd like you guys to take your time to lift your knees up, remove the blocks out of the way. And then we can roll over off of the props onto your right side, and let's recover. That was a lot to hold that shape. So now there's no props underneath you. You've pushed them back and out of the way. Maybe you've got a blanket though under your head if you like a pillow, or your right arm is a pillow. And this one we want to just round the back. We're in a fetal position, kind of curling in. So we just expanded our energy, and this is more condensing. And we're kind of letting the body settle in a little bit here. This isn't what I would call an official yin pose. What we're doing is we're recovering, we're kind of resetting, we're integrating. Good, and take it one more big breath here, just sort of noticing and sensing and feeling. Excellent. Now, in this fetal position, let's make sure our mat is cleared off, and we're going to straighten out the back. So instead of curling your back, just sort of straighten, and instead of having a forward head, chin into shoulders. So now you're stacking your shoulders, stacking your hips. And then you can kind of imagine that I've got both of my knees bent. You'd want your both knees bent with your feet in line with your hips, okay? So bend your knees, put your knees in front of you so that your feet are in line with your hips. So if I were on a wall, the back of my head's on the wall, the back of my shoulders, my hips, and my heels. Now, can you put your thumb, your left thumb on your hip? Find your hip bone, and then let the other fingers curl around the back of your buttocks there, okay? And remember I told you we had the abductors, right? They're under here. So let's see if we can just feel them activating, just so you kind of know about them, because they're going to be our next target. When you inhale, open your knee up to the ceiling while leaving your feet together, and just see if you can feel that muscle contracting. And when you exhale, put the knee back down. Yep, so slide your knees up, Kilder. Yes, there you go. Keep hip on top of hip, and you simply float the left knee up to inhale, and then put it back down to exhale. Are you feeling that muscle contract? Okay, so those are your abductors, or you can call it your gluteus medius, or your outer hips. We just did the inner hips, so now we're going to stretch the outer hips a little bit, all right? So, and there are lots of different poses. I'm going to kind of go over those in a little while with you, but let's roll on our backs and see if we can feel this part of our hip stretching. So while you're on your backs, put a bend into both knees, and then let's cross our right thigh over our left. Good. And usually when I say right thigh over left, people do ankle to knee because that's all they know, right? So can you do thigh on top of thigh? All right, so you've got that. Now, can you draw both of the knees in this shape up to your belly and use your hands to hold on to your knees? Okay, once you've got that, can you put your hands now to hold your shins? So your left hand is holding your right shin and your right hand is holding your left shin. Uh-huh. No, yeah, because your legs are twined. It like, just to figure that out, don't think about it. Okay, so now you've got it. Are you starting to feel the target? Okay, is it uncomfortable? Yeah, then you're doing it right, if you can feel it. And if you need to feel it more, you just simply pull the heels wider and they kind of wing out like airplane wings, and then you'll feel more sensation. Remember, the objective isn't to break the bank or anything. The objective is to just feel that target area. And then let's breathe into it. Now, the neck will always want to kink up, especially on this one. So I see a lot of you guys diligently drawing down. That's good. So first, the shoulders have to be broad in order for the chin to fit into its slot. So then the chin goes down. Shoulders broad, chin down. So you want to experiment because our hips are so unique and so different. What happens if you lean your thighs a little to one side? Or if you lean them a little bit to the other side? What helps you to feel that target? Good, and a few more deep breaths. So moving around so that you can feel the target area is encouraged. And there are, even though I'm talking about, like I say, the gluteus medius, well, come on, there's no one muscle, right? There's so many muscles along the outer hip, and they all kind of come in at different angles. And so as you kind of like change your angle up a little, you kind of hit little different aspects of different muscles, because we're never really going to ever hit just, we talk about the hamstring stretch. It's not just the hamstring stretching. It's like everything on the whole back side of your body. And for this one, there's a lot of stuff up the side of your hips as well. Good, we're breathing in deep. And then that's calming us down. It's settling us down. Awesome. And so now let's untangle our legs. And we'll do the same clamshells on the other side now. So could you just roll over? Let's see, now you probably lay on your left shoulder, just so you can kind of feel, just to awaken that area and to feel it. So now your right hip, you can put your hand on your right hip there, on the side of your buttocks, and then your ankles together. And same thing as before. You're going to go knee up and knee down with your ankles together. And just you're noticing and feeling and sensing that target muscle. Good, and we've got a feel for that, and we've activated that area. And when you're ready to go into your stretch on the other side, let's roll onto our backs. And we'll cross the other leg on top. And as you cross the leg on top, draw your knees in and hold on. Good. So we're using our hands to traction the pose. We want to feel our shoulders still active. You might feel the sides of your armpits kind of drawing down to make more space in your shoulders. And then that way we don't hold this pose with the chin cocked up. A lot of folks, these medial glutes are super duper tight. And in order just to even touch their knees, their whole body contorts. And you'll probably see this more than some of the other poses. The chin will jut up on this one as well. But now the other thing people do too is they put too many props underneath their head. So you want to make sure that you try to go for flat on the ground. And then if you can't broaden the shoulders and make the chin in and go flat on the ground, then you just add the littlest of support behind the back of the head to get that. Because if we spend this whole pose with our chin jammed in, we don't want to do that. We don't want to jam our chin in. So just enough, yeah, so that our neck is still straight and long and expanded. Because you'll see some people will even put a bolster behind the back of their head. We really don't want that either. You know, it's just too much. Okay, so we're feeling the pose. Maybe you're wiggling into it so that you can awaken sensation. You know, in the yin practice, you know, the feet often get neglected. And so, you know, we can be spinning our ankles or wiggling our feet. You know, you could add that in. If they're floating in the air, people might enjoy just sort of adding little doohickeys. Yeah, sometimes we get cracks and pops in our feet and ankles. And I'm telling you, that's really good news, because there's a ton of little bones there and they can be popping back into place. Or maybe stiff tissues are sliding over bone and they're kind of loosening up a little bit as they do that. All right. Then we'll give it one more big breath here. And then let's untangle the legs. We can put the feet on the ground so they're as wide as the edges of your mat, but your knees are bent. We're going to do a windshield wiper to release and relax from what we just did. So knees can sway to the right and then to the left. And we can even open our arms more T-shaped as we do that. And our head can also sway. So our head goes in the opposite direction of our knees. Good, and maybe we feel nice and loosened up in our hips. We did the inner groin and the outer hip already, and maybe we're already noticing the impact. Okay, so if we are designing our sequence to balance our hips, what are the two pieces left? We did the inside and the outside. What are the two pieces? Yeah, quadriceps and hamstring area. Now, like I said, I say quadriceps, but it's more than just that, and hamstrings, it's more than just that. And when you get into your advanced studies, we do go over all of the muscles and all of that. But right now, we're just trying to get the hang of these things. So let's see. So let's work with the back of our legs and our hamstrings. And so a lot of different ways we can use a yin pose to stretch and release the back. And what I'd like to do is, instead of staying a long time in one, we're going to do like a little smorgasbord, just so you can kind of feel, oh, this is the same pose. This is the same target, different pose, same target, different pose, same target. And we'll try to do, I'll see if I can come up with 3 different ones. So while you're laying here, let's send your right leg up to the sky. Okay, and we can put our hands behind the back of the leg. All right, and let's inhale to point the toe and exhale to flex the foot. You'll notice in the last one, we did some ankle circles. So part of the yin practice is also restoring joint mobility. Okay, so whenever we can move the joints, it's really good for us. All right, you guys feeling? All right, I am definitely stretching the back part of my leg. You guys feeling that? Okay, so now let's bend into your knees, roll over, come on up to table pose, hands and knees. Let's remember we're working with the right leg. We're going to continue to work with the right leg. We'll put our hands on blocks on high. You're on your knees, and if you want to make your knees more comfortable, you just open up a blanket. Okay, And we'll step the right foot forward. Once we step the right foot forward, we'll dig our heel in and pull our toe back. We'll lift up our tail and we'll aim our belly button towards our thigh. And are we hitting the same target? We are. Have you noticed? Okay. So this one, you want to make your knee a little straighter and you want to put your hips right over your back knee. Yes. Okay. So this one, we have the tendency to shift our hips off to the left. So can you slide your hips over to the right instead? Good. And we have the tendency also to lock out that knee. So we'll put a little micro bend in the knee. Awesome. And we have a tendency to sway the right hip down and forward. So let's instead lift the right hip up and back. Right hip up and back. Hips shift over to the right. Good. And check in that this doesn't hold extra tension in the shoulders, the back, and the neck. So let your head fall down, your chin into your throat. If you can easily touch the ground, you don't need the blocks. Good. All right, so we're feeling this target. One of the major dangers with stretching the hamstrings is overstretching the back of the knee into hyperextension. And so you probably have seen some folks where their knees pop completely backwards. So we wouldn't want to hold 5 minutes with the knee completely backwards like that. So good. And try right hip way up and back. So slide your heel more towards me. Up more. And now can you feel your hips nice and level? That's where we want to work that pose. We won't lock the knee. We can even dig the heel in and pull the heel backwards. How does that feel? We're activating our hamstring while we stretch it. Excellent. And then let's untuck that knee, untuck that leg, come back to table pose, sit back into child's for a moment. Take a deep inhale and a nice long exhale. And I guess for our grand finale, I'll show you another way to do the exact same pose. When I say pose, it's not the exact same pose, the exact same target area would be better described. So let's sit up. This one, remember how I was just explaining to you, we have the tendency to hyperextend and pop our knee. So if you would, make your right leg straight in front of you, just so you can kind of feel that. If you really super engage, see how my heel comes off the ground? I don't really want to cultivate that because that's not very functional. If you are out in the world and your knees popping backwards, it's not going to get you anywhere, right? It's not going to do anything positive for you. So a lot of people, they really try to go for that. Don't do that. Instead, heel down and knees active a little bit, okay? And then from here, what I love to do, instead of hanging on our backs in this pose, what I love to do is make a little table. So we're doing our classic Janu Sirsasana, and we can put the blocks on their high setting, and we make a little tabletop and pull it in. And then to prevent that knee, because we would be holding for a full 3 minutes, but I'm just giving you a sampler of this one. Let's put a blanket roll underneath the right knee. So just tuck a little something underneath the knee, okay? And then that way we take the stretch where we want it, not behind the knee, but up into the other tissues that are up a little higher, okay? So now we lift up and lengthen. Let's square both of our hips towards the straight leg. So can you turn your left hip more forward? And we might stay with hands behind us, lengthening, or you can tip it over, okay? And just sample that one. Okay, so we did 3 different poses, 1 single target area. Can you see it's all the same thing? So we laid on our backs and we felt our stretch. We were on hands and knees and felt our stretch. And now we're leaning into it and we felt our stretch. And through the combination of all of those, see, we're doing like minute holds for each one. So it'll add up the same target. We'll get maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. So while we rest here, check in that your shoulders are relaxed, face and jaw relaxed. And we're feeling into that target area. For yogis who are super duper flexible, you're always going to want to do what we call an active stretch. You're going to want to create a contraction in the target area. So you're going to want to make your hamstrings active. And the way we do that is we dig our heel into the earth and pull backwards with our heel until we feel that target area contracting a little bit. So maybe you can feel that. Good, and we'll give it one more big breath. Awesome. And then let's come on out of the pose and release that foot, and we'll sit comfortably. So I'd like to know what your experience was. Did you have a favorite? Could you feel it was the same thing? And then how was it? Was one a little different than the others for you, even though it's the same thing? Yeah.
When you made that adjustment.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
What happened in your body?
I could feel the stretch much better. Or
Yeah, you're digging for the stretch, right?
digging for the stretch, you would think that I'm feeling the stretch more.
Yeah.
You brought me back and aligned me, and I could totally feel the stretch all the way down.
Yeah. Would you like to show the others so they could just see the difference in the two shapes? So just kind of show them what you were doing first and exaggerate it, you know what I mean? Just so they can kind of feel, so they can kind of see. Okay. So yeah, something like
So
that.
I was leaning, like I was forward more. That's what it was. I was forward more, like almost in a split.
Yeah, leaning into it.
Yes, leaning into it like
And then and the hips were shifted.
yes. And then you said to straighten right hip, take this right hip back.
Yeah.
And now my hips are more square.
Yeah.
And then.
Yep. And even come back
I
this
think
way.
this leg
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
almost.
Yep. So that's what we want. We want hip over knee. And instead of pushing the hips, could I use you to show, that's the pose right there.
Right there, 'cause
And
my
now-
leg- this back
yeah,
leg
that's right.
wasn't collapsed.
That's right.
It was
Yep.
almost like just straight up.
And so we squared off the hips instead of letting one slide down, and we didn't hang on our ligaments. So it's super important. A lot of times in our stretches, we go to where and hang on our ligaments, and our ligaments are our stabilizers. And if we make our stabilizers unstable, they call that arthritis, hip pain. They call it, it's just not that good for you. So what we want to do is really dig into the target without hanging on our bodies in the poses. So I'm really glad you shared that. Were you guys able to kind of get a feel for what she was saying? So we're not going to hang here. That's not our target, right? We already stretched there, and hanging on that in a loaded position isn't so good. So our target is to get more length right there. And what about the rest of you guys? We had 3 different ways to experience the same target area. Oh, what was it that you wanted to share?
I did, like, I felt it in the same target area, but there were different.
Yeah. Which one was the most intense for you?
The one up on the blocks that showed.
The one on the blocks was the most intense. Okay. Who did it? Would you guys raise your hand if the block? Well, let's do a little vote. Like, it's going to be different for each one of us. Who was the block one the most intensive? Hands and knees. Okay. We've got 1, 2, 3, maybe about half of us. And then laying on our backs. Who was that the most intensive for? Okay. Okay. Almost another half. And then the sitting down and leaning. Okay. So this.
But there was, I had to do a serious accommodation for it. I actually had to sit on a wall.
Yeah.
Because what I felt is that because of my shoulder stuff, I could feel myself going into that position, which is my fault. I lost my lumbar curve.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but it felt better when I kind of put a very slight.
Yeah. Now, are you guys surprised to see the results of that? Because when you think of stretching your hamstring, don't you think I'm going to sit and do Janusirsasana? Do you guys think that way or no? Maybe not. Some of you guys were not surprised. You weren't surprised. Yeah. So we want to kind of, and I'm going to tell you I'm going to gripe again a little bit. So as a yoga therapist, sitting and hanging on a hunched back is not one of our therapeutic objectives. So when we do the classical Janusirsasana, that's why I put the prop there. But if we didn't, a lot of folks, I want to show you what it might look like for most of the folks who aren't as limber as you all are. They're going to go in like this, okay? And this is what it looks like. There's no stretch in my hamstring when I do this, none. And all my weight is bearing on my back. And if you look at your hamstrings and your glutes and all that, they're like this thick, right? And if you look at the little ligaments of your back and the little multifidus muscles in your back and your spinal discs, they're like this big, right? So now you're asking those two to go to war. Let's have a wrestling match and let's see which one stretches out first. Well, who's going to win? Well, the leg muscles are going to stay stiff and the little itty bitty muscles are going to go pop, 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 pop. And we'll call that a ruptured disc, a blown disc. We'll call that overstretched ligaments of your back. So then you can't support and stabilize your spine. And so it's just, they're finding that kind of leaning and hanging all your body weight on a round back. If you're teaching from this therapeutic perspective, which I adopt, it's just not the best idea. And if 90% of us all felt a better stretch, a more intense stretch, not doing it, well, maybe. Were you able to feel stretch in the other two poses?
I just knew that I felt it hanging on my back. And I just had to react.
Yeah.
I just know that's not the position. I wasn't feeling it, and I could feel that. And I'm one of those ones that tends to overextend. So
Yeah.
I know that my work is definitely bended there, but I definitely have to lift my tail because I was losing the lumbar.
Yeah, yeah.
And then because that position is, there's no connection in that. Like I know that's the least amount of connection.
Yeah.
Shut down. So once I got the back bend in it, then I felt it.
Yeah. So I'm not saying never do Janu Sirsasana, you know, whatever you like it, it's fine. But just keep in mind, if your goal is to create this sort of sensation of deep stretch, and our sample size showed us that those other two seem to give better sensation for 90%. It's always going to be like that. There'll be 10 or 20% that like, no, those don't work for me. I like this one. We're all different, right? But when we teach to a group, we kind of have to teach to the 80%, 90%, and then we let the 10 or 20%, if this isn't working for you, do something else, and they might be off on their own doing something different for it. Okay, so gosh, I'm not going to leave you guys all lopsided. So let's start off. We'll do a minute on the other leg now. So we'll start off just by laying on our backs, and we'll kick the left leg up to the sky. And you can hold on to the back of the leg if you want to. Lots of different variations. This one I really like doing pointing and flexing. So you can inhale and point the toes and exhale and flex the foot. Good, and we'll try to straighten the knee a little bit more as we do that. That way we'll get into the target area a little bit more. And this one, it's pretty hard to hyperextend the knee because you're not bearing weight against the knee, okay? In the kneeling position, it's the easiest to hyperextend the knee because all your weight is bearing down and pushing the knee backwards, right? And even in sitting, your weight is bearing down. But this one's tougher, so you don't have to worry about that so much. Good, and maybe you're noticing if you change the angle of your leg a little to the right or to the left, you feel the sensation a little different. And that's kind of part of the back line or hamstring stretches, is to just check in. You know, you can, a little angle in, a little angle out hits the inner hamstrings and the outer hamstrings. Okay, we sampled that one. Come on up to hands and knees. And we're working with that same left leg. I always encourage people to use the blocks because most of the people in your class that come, you're going to want to, that way you can keep your back nice and straight. So first step, can you slide your right hip directly over your knee? Okay. And then notice if it's, let's all do this. Can you all shift your right hip to the right just for a moment? I'm hanging on my hip. Can you feel that? Now tuck it back in. Okay. Now to make the hips nice and level, lift your left hip up and back. To hit the target area more, we pull the toes off the ground so we dig just our heel in. We try to make our spine nice and long and lifted. Yep, so see if you want to try it. Instead of going for the splits, just try what we're teaching. Yep. And then see if you can get sensation. So same thing, very loose hip. Lift this hip up and back. Okay, slow, settle down there. Okay, there. So shift it a little bit here and then lift this up and back. And now lift your chest up and then lean into it. Are you feeling a stretch? Okay, good. So that's kind of the idea. That's right. Keep those, yep, those. You could be a samba dancer. She's like, yeah, I am actually. Okay, you guys feeling that? Okay, make your toe go pointed and say, I feel it less, right? Don't you feel the stretch less? Pull your toes back. I feel it more. Okay, and now, so we've sampled that one out. Now let's go for our traditional Janu Sirsasana. And the way we help it to be safe for us is we don't want to pop the knee. I didn't cue you guys. Hopefully you guys weren't popping your knee straight in that one, a little bend. So in this one, a little blanket roll underneath your straight leg is great. And then instead of resting in a hunchback position, we kind of lengthen and lean into our props. And you know, when you talk about energy in the pose, if you just tuck your head down, can you see that there are some benefits to this in the sense that we're condensing and grounding and our energy is going more inside of us, right? As you kind of hubble in a little bit. So if you're looking to create a kind of condensed feeling, you might even select this as one of your poses. Good, and we'll give it one more big breath here. And then soon we can come on up. Now, if you were teaching your real yin class, you know, you just select one of those, right? I just wanted you to feel how you could decide which one you might choose. You know, you can choose your favorite or you can vary them up each time you come. It's the same target. It's kind of like people think they're getting a different class from you every time, but you're doing the same thing, you know, whether it's on your back or on your bum or on your knees, it's the same thing, but you gave 3 different options. Okay, so now we kind of did that back side. Let's work on this front side a little bit. To stretch into the front part here, there's a lot of stuff when we're in a seated position that we have to keep in mind and take in mind. So one thing I'd like for us to experiment with, just so we can feel and sense this, is I'd like for us to all to come to hands and knees and make the tops of your feet flat on the ground. Okay, and then just look and see, do the tops of my feet get flat on the ground? So does the crease where my ankle is press flat down to the ground? Okay, good. And then what I'd like to do is, good, show some examples. So if you guys could come back and sit down. Kilder, would you mind being an example? Okay, so each one of our joints has mobility based a lot on our bone structure. So if I point my toe a lot like this and it pinches back here, right? I'm supposed to be feeling it here. So what do you think that means if I feel it back here? That's a puzzle, isn't it? I'm supposed to be stretching here, but I feel it back here. What could be happening in your body? Yeah, the bones. The bones are smushing against each other, and that hurts. It's like one of those sensations that's not, when I say, are you uncomfortable? It's not supposed to be that kind of, you're supposed to be uncomfortable in your target area. So the uncomfortableness you're supposed to be feeling is, oh, this is stretching. And that's how you know you're kind of entering into the pose and you're working the soft tissues. What we don't want to do is work the bone against the bone and then sit like that for 5 minutes and grind the bone against each other, okay? And so for some of us, it's soft tissue, and for some others of us, it's bone, the bones have reached their limit. And so what I was noticing with Kilder is, you noticed it too, right? The tops of the feet have an angle. So if I asked Kilder, remember we got to fill the space, right? Fill the space. So he had a little space underneath his ankles. And so what I'd like to invite you to do is create just a little itty bitty, and we can kind of show this, so that your ankles will go over this and the tops of the feet. Just put this hole right here where this is, so you can adjust yourself. Good. And then now push down with the tops of your feet. And does it feel more comfortable? A little bit. And if you were to walk your seat backwards towards your heels and just kind of walk back slowly, 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 how is that feeling? Where do you feel the stretch in the pose? Yeah, okay, in the target area, so that's good. And he didn't say to me, I'm feeling a pinch in my bones, but we still want to, so either his bones are limiting him or the tissues are, and it doesn't really matter. We've got to fill the space. Okay, so there was space there. Then other folks, I think, can you make a pointed toe position just on your seated and make a pointed toe there? And can you see her foot? If I were to get, I'll use this block, right? And if I were to put this across her shin, there's like a hole there, right? So her foot can go into what we might call hypermobility, right? And does that hurt where does it hurt? Where does it stretch? Yeah, so she's feeling the stretch. She's not feeling compression in the back. And what, for some folks, you're going to run, to simplify, there are bendy, stretchy people, and then there are, we might call them Vikings, or stiff and strong people. And not to say the bendy, stretchies aren't strong and the Vikings don't have some flexibility, but the tissues. So some of us, you know, and I'll just do a fun little analogy. When we were all getting lined up to be birthed, right? Let's say, imagine we're all in heaven and we're all lined up and we're going to be going down to our mamas. And let's say there was a deity, you know, like God was giving out collagen. Well, for some people, you each get a certain amount of collagen. You get your collagen, you get your collagen, you get your collagen. And then he got in a long conversation with somebody and the collagen kept going, right? Oh, whoops, that's plenty for you. And then he was distracted, or she, whatever, you know, I'm just trying to make a story. And the other person, oh, yeah, that's enough. And you see, and it's not equally distributed. And depending on the amount of collagen that is in your physical body, that depends on how bendy your ligaments are. The bendier your ligaments are, the more you're prone to what they would call just hypermobility. It moves more. So she demonstrated it moved more. And then for some folks, they were given that, so that they were given less collagen, and the people that were given a lot of collagen, they don't bend as much. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind, that's what we're teaching to. And in order to get, I'm bringing this back to our bent knee position, right? We want to get to a bent knee position to stretch our quads. We got to get to this kind of position, okay? The other limitation we have is the ability of our knees to bend. So we could kind of test the waters on that too. So can you come up to table pose, hands and knees? And I'm going to invite you, if your ankles don't go flat, fill the space, right? Fill the space underneath your ankles if your ankles don't go flat, and just enough to fill the space because you don't want to take the stretch away, right? But you don't want to feel a pinch in the back of your heel. So if you're feeling it in the back of your heel, that means you've got to put more cushion. Now, just slowly walk back and just see, does my seat touch my heels? Does my seat touch my heels? Okay, so then we know that this is part of our functional mobility, that we can do this. If our seat doesn't touch our heels, we're working on the knee portion of it as well. Okay, all right. So you might already be feeling stretch in the front of your shins and maybe even a little bit in your quadriceps, but I'm going to take you through different ways that we can stretch the quadriceps. Most of the time, and you guys probably forget this because you've been doing yoga, if you can do all this, most of the time people just lay flat on their backs and they go, okay, I'm stretching, you know, like, but for 95% of the regular people, everyone, and for the people coming to your class, like that's a hugely impossible pose. And it's not only uncomfortable, but it can be potentially unsafe. So I want to show you different ways to stretch without necessarily doing the reclining hero. And I don't have a pet peeve against the reclining hero, but I want to show you all, we want to build to that. So the way we're going to start off so that we include everybody and everyone's abilities is we'll lay on our right side. And then we can reach our left hand back to hold on to our foot or our ankle, and we can draw heel to buttocks, okay? To make this more of a stretch, you need to push your pelvis a little bit more forward and tuck your ribs in a little bit more. Pelvis forward, ribs in, okay? So that's one way to experience. Everyone feeling a little stretch in their quads? Okay. Now you let go of your foot, but lay on your belly. Okay, as you lay on your belly, bend that same leg and reach back. And here we are. Can you see this is the same pose? And you can make your head comfortable. Maybe you put your forehead on your forearm. Can you see this is the same pose? For most people, this is going to be really good because it does not challenge, it does not weight bear into the ankle mobility, which might be limited. It doesn't weight bear into the knee, which may be injured or hurt, okay? So this is a great way for 80–90% of the people to get this stretch without really impacting their knee and their ankle. But what I'd like to show you also is another way where we're going to, so this is non-load bearing, meaning we're not putting our whole body weight on our target, right? On our knee and on our ankle. We're not putting our whole body weight there. So another way though that is load bearing is let's turn around, let go of everything and come on up. And I'm going to suggest to make this a lot more accessible to most people as we put the bolster behind us. We take our blanket and we're going to make it just like it came off the rack. And then put a bend so it looks like this. And then put that at the very end. So it's like a little incline. So I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay. Now we were working with our right leg. So now we can sit off onto our left hip and test the waters. We'll tuck our right foot underneath and behind us. And for some folks, like this is so much that we just sort of go off to the side and that's how we do it, right? But a lot of folks, when you've got the bolster there, you can start to lean back and we'll open up the chest and the shoulders. So see how that feels. And you can see that this is the same pose. If you wanted to stretch your right leg, you'd flip your feet around. Good. Are you guys all feeling your right quadricep stretching, just like in those other poses? Good. We want to make sure that the pillow catches your head. There it is. And your shoulders can open around and down. And we take some deep breathing here, deep inhales and long exhales. And this is called a half reclining hero. And let's settle in for a little bit here. And heart is opening. The top of the foot, the top of the shin is opening. The quadricep area, the front of the thigh is opening. And you can feel your torso is arched. So the front of your core and those abdominals, your psoas is opening. And just like that first pose that we did, the shoulders and the chest are also opening. Good, and we'll go for one more big breath here. And then soon we'll slowly use our hands to come on up. We'll untuck the leg, extend the leg out, maybe just shake it out. And the other leg, we'll go through the same sort of sequence, if you will, for the other leg. So without any props, we'll do side lying. And we can bend into that right knee now. Or is that the other side for you guys? Good. Just take a few breaths and feel that sensation. This one leads for a lot of compensations because the hips can be doing, they can compensate, right? There's no weight bearing. And so then to go a little differently, just simply roll over onto your belly and just try it out that way. Sometimes when we're doing our stretches, we activate muscles to create desired effects in the body. And muscle groups are married together. In other words, when one muscle group is active and strong, an opposing muscle group gives way and lets out a little bit so that that muscle can work more. Okay, so if we were wanting to stretch our quadriceps, we would kind of activate our glutes a little bit more and the back of our leg a little bit more. And so we kind of have the feeling of pressing our hip bones into the ground. And then see if you can make your right knee go down the mat a little longer. Heel into buttocks, both hips kind of pressing into the earth. And we're feeling that stretch and that sensation. Sometimes we add on to something like this. So you could even prop up onto your elbows while you do something like this if you wanted to get more of your core involved. We didn't do that on side one, but I just want you to know, you can lay your chest on a bolster while you do this and get, instead of propping up on your elbow. And you can see you'll be able to feel that. And then let's go to letting go and turning over now. And we'll do that same leg, The heel tucks behind us. And our bolsters in place. And we lay on back. Okay, so sometimes folks turn their foot sideways, okay, on this pose. And it's not wrong to turn your foot sideways, but if we do have the target of working this line here, and we can put the toe, the top of the foot down, then that goes up and it creates that stretch. If when we do it, it feels too awkward on our knee or it's too uncomfortable, then our bones are shaped in a way that just makes it better for us to put our foot that way. But you would want to kind of experiment between trying to get the top of the foot flat and seeing, does that stretch the top of my foot? And do I want the top of my foot to experience that target? Or does it just not work for me? And I need to go and have it the other way. And we might close our eyes and just simply be with this pose, allowing sensation. So the target is not in the knee joint. So we want to double check that. In the sense that we don't want to feel pain in the knee. Good. And then when you're ready, we'll come on out and come on up. So sometimes we like to do the two at the same time, symmetrically working this area.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, if somebody was saying that they have pain in their knee, what adjustment would you need to make?
All right, that's so awesome. If someone's having pain in their knee, of those three poses that I showed you, which one should that person do? What do you guys think? What's that? Huh? Laying on your belly or laying on your side, because this one is the most weight bearing. And so it's going to create the most pressure in the joints. And for some people, it's just not right. They need to ease into it a little bit more. So for fun, we're going to work our way into a reclining hero that I think everyone could enjoy. So the idea to make an enjoyable reclining hero is to make sure that our props can fill the space that's for each person, okay? So before they kind of get into their pose, they would want to check in. Do I need a little something under my ankles? Because otherwise it's going to be pretty agonizing. Remember how we did the ankle? And then when I start to lean back, it's absolutely lovely to start to build this up. And I want to show you different ways to build it up depending on your flexibility. You could even use as many as 2 blankets. So you could set one blanket up and you want to kind of tier it. And you could even kind of turn that under a little bit. And we could get this even higher by going like that. And you can see this is getting pretty high, right? And this could work for most folks. Can you guys see that setup? And if they need even more, you can pick up the back end and look at that. Okay, so we would all start off and maybe you just sort of sample it and just see, how does it feel to sit on my heels, turn my toes in, just see how that feels. If that's feeling okay, then you would walk yourself back, and like for me, this is just a little too high. So I would pare it down, okay? For some folks, it's gonna feel just right. For some folks, just sitting on their feet like that, it just isn't working for their ankles and their knees. And then they wouldn't need to sit and suffer. They would just turn over on their bellies and hold on to both heels towards buttocks. Okay. Good. And we do want to allow for hip variations. So I would say the most intense is to sit on your heels and have your knees point more forward. But for some of us, our hips aren't shaped in a way that feels intense or good in any way. And so we might adjust our knees, adjust our feet accordingly so it feels all right. Good. And you do want to be able to settle in. Yeah. So then what would be good is let's build this up. Do you want to try it or you don't want to bother? Yeah. So then you want to lay on your belly and draw both heels towards buttocks. Yep.
Can I sit on my bolster? Because that feels good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. The only thing is you won't be able to, you'll run out of space if you lay down. So what I would recommend.
This was my back, my knees, and my feet.
Yeah. So this is what I recommend is try this. Try to sit, see if that works, because that way I want your bolster to be able to catch you.
I just normally don't do this one.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to check each step of the way. So don't do anything more. Check this step. How is that feeling on your ankles and your knees?
Yeah.
That feels okay. And where you're sitting, does that feel okay?
Yes.
Okay. So now then we got to work on the back, right? So we need some more. I'm going to borrow. Okay. So we don't want a sharp edge here. So I'm going to just keep tearing this up and let's see. Let's see if we can. I kind of pride myself on
Finding.
yeah, people going, oh my gosh. Okay, now just go slowly, slowly, slowly. How's that? Slowly, slowly, slowly. It's there for you. And
That's my back.
so then don't.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So then you would lay on your belly and do the same thing. It's not for everyone. It's the most intense yoga pose there is. But sometimes all I'm suggesting is that for sometimes you can put the props in and it's more accessible to some people. They're just like, nah, it's not for me. And we don't want to force or strain. Can you try?
Could be my mind too, not just the pose, right?
Yeah. So can you bring your knees towards each other? And then what I'm going to have you do is.
I would love to just work in this one and do this one more.
Yeah, so get it so your ankles are the way you wanted them.
Okay.
And then let's see. Does that feel okay?
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's the space.
Yeah, and so then, but now we don't want to, we've got to build this up too, you know? So I want to fill the space. And I'm going to steal again. All right, and you guys have been there for a long time. If you guys, and then let's.
So
All right.
that's the difference.
And then just see how that goes.
That was different.
Does that feel okay?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it was the bracing to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's better.
All right, and then can you stay put because we can learn. All right, for the rest of you folks, come on up and come on out. Have you been converted?
Yes, and I literally, Donna, I have been wondering how to get in this pose without getting into panic for a long time.
Okay, so come on over here, you guys. Come on, come on, come on.
And then what I do know is that it needs, like, there's an elbow thing too, but.
Yeah, so you could put blocks underneath. So this pose is hey, you guys, come on over. Come on over. Come on over.
That's it. You got it.
Yeah. So we wanted to fill the space. Okay. So we had a hater of this pose who's turned into almost a lover. A lover? Working. Yeah, they're someone who's dating. They're dating now. They used to hate. Okay, but look, it's a hugely prop intensive, and you gotta. So it's, like if you're just sort of whipping this pose out for the whole entire group, think again, because you saw like just within our group, we had quite a few people that were like, oh man, no way, right? And to be able to go around to each person in a big group and tweak it like we've tweaked hers, it's tough. But if you have a smaller group, it can't, this is one of the best, biggest stretches for you if you can do it in a way that doesn't impact your ankles, your knees, and your back in a painful way. And she had kind of all those. So let's look at what we've done here. So her ankles were giving her trouble, and I showed you how to do that little roll. So her knees are on the blanket, the roll is underneath her ankle, and her foot just hangs over. Okay, then sitting on her heels without any support, too much. So we put a blanket and we folded it up to look like a block. And instantly when she sat down on it, she said, that's it. She said, that's it. We filled the space. See, she wasn't quite, there was space there. She wasn't quite settling into it. But then once you put all of that stuff underneath her, you can't say now lay down on the ground. It's going to like jack her back. So then we had to build. And we started and I've got a blanket underneath her low lumbar and another blanket and a blanket underneath the back of her head. But then she's up so high, she says, but what about my arms and my shoulders? And so now she's going to close her eyes because she hasn't had this date before, and she's going to enjoy this date. And maybe just take a few deep breaths, because before it gave you panic. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was really anxiety.
Yeah. And so now she needs to reprogram that this could be okay for her. This could be the beginning of something new. And maybe just a couple more breaths, and then all right, we'll leave you to yourself. There's nothing like having a date and having everyone like join in on your date. Okay, so you can see we've done quite a lot already, but we did it in a systematic way. You know, we did inside and outside and front and back. And it balances the hips, but we also got a lot of other things. Our spine got involved in it. When we talk about balancing the spine, okay, what are the 4 motions of the spine? Yeah, forward, back, side, side, twist, twist. Okay, so we kind of have done the forward and the back. Have you felt that? But we haven't really done any side, side, or twist, twist. So the side, you know, when you're standing up, you do kind of things like this. So for laying down poses, same thing. You want to, since we're doing this here, I think we have enough. Could you all grab one more bolster and come right back? And let me know if you run out there. Okay, were there plenty of bolsters? Okay, so my absolute favorite way to stretch the lateral line is completely impractical in a lot of ways, unless you can have the 2 bolsters, but I kind of want you guys to feel it, and there may be opportunities where you have 2 bolsters, and it's basically creating this shape laying down, okay? So the way we'll do that is we're going to take our bolster, and our bottom bolster is going to be across your mat, dissecting your mat. And the top bolster is going to go with your body. So we're going to make this T shape here. We can reserve our blankets for any space that we might have that we want to fill. And if you can get to a place where you can see me, that will help you to set up your structure. So you can imagine my mat is going like this. Look, I'm going to sit on the top one. I'm going to put, the target is the side body. So I'm going to put my hip, I stole it, sorry, just for a second. And I'm going to reach my left arm down. And I'm going to fill the space and put a little pillow underneath my left ear. I'm going to extend my legs. I'm going to stack my hips. And I'm going to work that pose like that. Okay. So it's the same. Whatever. We're going to do both sides. So it'll be okay. Okay. So you want your hip on top. So you're, in order for it to be a lateral bend of the spine, yep, your hip has to be up. So you want your shoulder touching the ground, your hip in the middle of the T, your legs extending out, and you want to straighten the top leg, especially the bottom leg can be however you like it. That's right. And then can you all imagine you're between two panes of glass. So your ribs are being pushed back to the wall behind you. Your buttocks is descending more towards your heels. And then instead of rolling it open, make sure it's stacking. So hip on top of hip. Good. The very top foot or ankle, can you flex the foot? And when I say flex, it just means toe torsion. And then can you turn the side of the ankle down, almost like you want your pinky to touch the ground. There it is. And then let your foot rest on the other foot. So you're reaching away like you want the blade, outer blade of your foot to touch the ground, bending your ankle that way. Is anyone getting some sensation? Are you getting sensation down the lateral body? Okay, so let's add on some deep breathing here. Deep inhale and long exhales. And this one I'd like to add on a little bit of breath retention. So inhale to your fullest capacity and hold the breath in. And only you know how long to hold the breath. And then exhaling. And do a couple rounds this way. Good, so the lateral flexion of the spine, that means our shoulders on the ground, but the blanket's underneath our ear. And then that way we can really flex the spine sideways. Yeah, is that okay on your body? Good. Up a little pillow. Oops, I'll get you a pillow. Good. Yep. You can even put your, it can be like this. If you like, is it comfortable the way you have it? Or you? Okay, that's fine then. Keep it. Yep. Good. You've got it. When you're breathing into your fullest capacity and holding the breath in. What happens in your stretch when you add on that deep breathing? Can someone say what they feel? Deepens. What deepens? Yeah, you feel the stretch more. Is that correct for everybody? Well, because part of this lateral line are those obliques and our breathing muscles. And so when we cue our breath, we're getting deeper into that line. Okay, now let's say we don't have two bolsters, which will be the case a lot of the times. So let's bend our knees and come on up. And just to give you another sample, push, pretend you don't have that bolster anymore, get rid of it. We still can leave this other bolster in the middle, but for a lot of folks, they might enjoy lifting, making the bolster a little taller. And all we're going to do is the same idea. We're going to lean over it. We're going to put maybe a blanket on top of the bolster and lean and stretch that way and just lift our arms. So if you're creating the same shape, you want your right shoulder on the ground. And this time you wouldn't put your hip up. This time you put your hip down. Yeah, yep, there we go. Yep. There. And you can see you can still get sensation, but you want the bolster to be underneath your ribs, not underneath your armpit. Yep, so it's really close to your hip. Good. Are you guys getting sensation? Which, just I'm curious, because you guys had it. Well, you already did the first one, but so this one might already feel less because you stretched once already, but just out of curiosity, which one do you feel more sensation in, the first one or the second one? First one. The first one, it involves more of your body, because this one, your hips and your lower body aren't in it as much. So now so we're stretching our left side of our body, correct? Let's get rid of the bolster altogether and lay flat on our backs. And you guys probably know what we're going to do here. This one's called banana pose. To stretch the left side of your body, you need to move your legs over to the right. This one, we're flat as a pancake. Our shoulders can walk also over to that right side. That's right. You've got it. We want to square the hips up and flatten them onto the ground. We also want to flatten our shoulders. So don't put your arm across your face. Let your arm rest over your head. So your bicep is right next to your ear, or your arms on the ground. Try again. Breathe in deep and hold the breath in. Good. Make sure your feet are leaning over too. Some of you guys don't have your feet leaning over. Feet go to the right. Body leans to the right. Yep. All right, lateral flexion of the spine. We're doing it. If you want a little bit more sensation, bend your right knee, put your right foot on the ground. But now lean your right knee to the left. No, some of you guys are leaning to the right. Lean your knee across the midline. Yes. Do you guys feel more sensation when you do that? Why do you think we feel more sensation when we push with that right foot? What's that? Yeah, we're loading it. We're loading the pose. And if we put our knee to the right, it would take the weight off of the pose, right? You can feel, yeah. So maybe a nice, comfortable inner groin stretch, but it's not loading the pose. Okay, so we did that side of the body. Come on back to the middle. Let's draw knees into chest and rock it out a little bit. And we'll do some sampling on the other side. So now we can, do you want to make the double bolster for fun? I have been able to use it from time to time. In the post-pandemic era, there seemed to be a lot of extra bolsters around. So we're targeting the lateral body. So we want our hips to be the highest thing and everything to drape on both sides, to drape down. We want our shoulder to ground down onto the earth, but we can let our ear rest on a blanket. Yes, you can get your shoulder to be on the ground. See how your shoulder's up on the bolster? Can you put your left shoulder on the ground?
Oh, yeah.
Even more. And then pillow, and then you can check in that feels okay. Okay, good. And then we're extending that top leg. The bottom leg it can do whatever, it's not really part, but the top leg can extend. Sometimes we get a little more juice if we get the bottom leg out of the way. You know what I mean? Then the top leg can go down more. There's more room for it to go down. So you kind of, bend into that bottom knee, get the foot out of the way. And then you can bend the side of your blade of your foot. Like you want the pinky blade of your foot to touch the ground. And then instead of arching in the pose, right? This one we want to flatten in, flat, yes, like that. Then do you feel more sensation, curious when you do that? Okay, good. And instead of rolling the hip open, we roll the hip more down and forward. Yes, there. Does that give you more? Good. I like it when you guys, when we align it and you're like, you affirm to me, yes. Okay, so we sampled that out, but a lot of times you won't have two bolsters. So come on up and we'll make just a similar type structure just to sample it and experiment with the blankets and how high you want your blankets. And this one affects more just the top part of the line, right? So that we're kind of putting it under our rib cage and we're creating a lateral flexion of the spine. Shoulder touches the ground, hip touches the ground on this one. And we're feeling it a little differently, but hopefully we do still have some sensation. Good. And let's just take 2 deep breaths here to feel the sampling of this. And then we'll go into our banana. So notice your right side of your body is our target area. We'll get rid of all the props. And we'll lay flat on our backs. And same target. Good. And so both of the legs lean over to the left. Yep, we want to stretch our right side, unless you were doing the opposite. Let's add on our deep breathing and our breath retention. And then if you needed that more sensation, you would bend into the left knee and lean it across the body, foot on the ground. Good. So see how, remember we want to fill the space. So there's quite a lot of space here. So if you let go, there, and now there's no space, and then just slide your body this way. Yeah. Good. And maybe 2 more breaths with breath retention. Deep inhale in. Good. And hopefully you got some nice sensation going on. This one's pretty sensory rich. Probably competes pretty well with the double bolster. Maybe even stronger than the double bolster, I don't know. And then soon we'll bring that back to the middle. And we'll draw knees into chest, rock and roll our hips. So what is the only motion of the spine we haven't done yet? Twist, the rotation of the spine. So this one, there's like a lot of different ways to twist the spine, and I'm going to have you guys use a bolster off to the right side. And we'll kind of, we'll stay twisting with our knees to the right, chest open to the left, but we'll just sort of sample around a little bit. So lay on your backs and put the bolster down near your hip lengthwise. And then draw both knees up to your belly and both knees land on the bolster. Okay. So, and for most people, when they do this, their left shoulder touches the ground. So double check, left palm faces up, left shoulder is on the ground. Okay, so is that working for everybody? Okay. So then you're there and you're grounded and you don't have to fill any more space. But for some folks, you might have just a little bit more mobility. So maybe you take the bottom leg out of the way and just put the top knee on top and just sort of see, is my shoulder still stay down? Does that feel good? And one is not better than the other. We're creating a spinal rotation and you definitely want it safe and moderate. Okay, and then there are lots of other, you know, like sometimes people twine their legs up, and I think that's probably the only other variation. It's not better. Maybe you just got to be careful. We don't want any floating shoulders. And then you find the variation that works good for you, that you like and enjoy. Our head will turn to the left, and our left arm will be more diagonal. Our left shoulder will draw down and into our back. And we'll take a deep inhale and a nice long exhale to go. And we'll do that 2 more times, a deep inhale and a nice long exhale to go. And then soon we recapture our deep nostril breathing. And these poses can be poses of surrender. They help us to see things from a new perspective. We're mindful because we are twisting the spine, and if someone does have some kind of spinal injury or spinal discomfort, they would either go for the very most moderate one that we started off with, or maybe they would avoid it, or keep making it softer and softer until it felt right for them. Good. And then without too much ado, we're going to create the same shape on the other side. So you slowly unravel and reposition the props in the way that you were using them on side 1. And we'll put them over on side 2. Right shoulder is grounded, right arm more diagonal, chin to the right. When we settle in, each time you exhale, giving way to the earth. And each time you inhale, opening to the possibility of something new. And we'll give it one more deep breath here. And then soon we're ready to unravel our twist. And once again, some wiggling motions that feel good. Maybe a windshield wiper, or drawing knees into belly and wiggling it out. And the last pose in any yin sequence is your shavasana. Oftentimes I will use my shavasana to create an inversion. So let's set up for a relaxation pose, rest. We're going to take our 2 blocks, and they're going to be table legs. So you can put them maybe on this setting here where they're got the longest parts on the top. And then put your bolster to be the tabletop. If we want to make a proper inversion, our legs have to be higher than our hips. Our hips have to be higher than our chest. So everything kind of goes down. So we got to find a way to elevate our hips. And the way we're going to do that is by taking our blanket and making it into more of a little square like this. And we're going to do 2 of those. Okay. So we want to sit down with our bum on the blanket squares, and we want our calves to be on the tabletop, not our ankles, because if we put our ankles on the tabletop, then we'll lock our knees into a straight position. So sit down on the blankets, rest your calves on the table, And then roll your back backwards until you're laying down. We can do a little shoulder tuck, and place our shoulders underneath our back. You probably have to get closer with your blankets. We can make sure the backs of the hands are resting. The chin is gently nuzzling in. We'll take a deep inhale and exhale to go ha. And then as we close our eyes, we'll meditate a little bit. So I'm going to invite you into a relaxation meditation. If you'd like to follow along with me. Eyes are closed and the body is still. Take your awareness to your right big toe. And now move your awareness to your left big toe. And now both of the big toes together in your awareness. Notice them both at the same time. Now go to the left remaining toes, the rest of the toes on the left side, and the rest of the toes on the right side. And now all of those toes together in your awareness. We'll move our awareness to the right shin and ankle. Notice your right shin and ankle. Now move to the left shin and ankle. And both of those together in your awareness. We'll move to the left kneecap. And notice the front of the knee and the back of the knee and the sides of that left knee. And now the right kneecap, the front, the back, and the sides. We'll notice the right hip and thigh. The right hip and thigh are in your awareness. And now the left hip and thigh. And both hips and thighs together in your awareness. We'll notice the left thumb. And the right thumb. And now both of the thumbs in your awareness. We'll notice the right fingers. And the left fingers. And both of the fingers of both hands in your awareness. We'll notice the left forearm and wrist. And now the right forearm and wrist. And both together in your awareness. We'll notice our shoulder and the upper part of our arm on the right side. And now the left shoulder and upper part of your arm. And together, shoulders and arms on both sides. And now we'll notice our left eye. The left eye is in your awareness. And now your right eye. And both of the eyes together. We'll take our awareness into our brain. And we'll simply look into the center of the brain. And as we look into the center of the brain, we imagine spaciousness expanding out into the whole face and the throat, expanding out into the chest and the arms, expanding out into the hips and the legs. And we'll rest here in silence in this expanded state for a little while. And we might notice the expansion goes further than our body, maybe even out into outer space. And keep allowing yourself to drift further and further out and away. Noticing yourself as spaciousness and freedom and openness. And we'll slowly begin to condense back into our bodies. We'll allow fingers and toes to begin to move. To further the effects of our inversion, we might enjoy just putting our feet on top of the bolster or extending our feet straight up to the sky. And kind of pedaling our knees a little bit of movement to help the effects of the inversion create therapy in our body. And then when you're ready, we can press our feet back down and we'll take a little break here. Since you guys got all relaxed, I'll make you run around the parking lot before you come back.